The alliance of oil-producing countries have agreed to cut production, and the US and EU want to establish oil price caps. Today I'm going to talk all about the oil industry announcements made yesterday and how we got to this point. Let's be informed so we can get on with our day. Oil prices have been a hot topic around the world this year, with the average price of a gallon of gas in the U.S. reaching a peak of over $5 last June. Disruptions in the supply chain due to the Russia-Ukraine war and COVID created an issue that, for a while, was looking to appear to come to an end, but now has become a headline again thanks to the recent announcement by the oil alliance OPEC, as well as by the announcements by the U.S. and UN. But first, let me just backtrack for a minute to give a little quick recap of the situation, as there's a good amount of geopolitical context at play. Even before this year, industries around the world faced unprecedented supply chain disruptions thanks to the pandemic. Countries around the world were handling the virus differently, and this caused a very unstable economy as manufacturers, suppliers, and shippers were unpredictable in their production levels. To this day, China, who's a massive exporter, adheres to a zero-COVID policy, which could mean lockdowns for businesses or entire regions at any given time, bringing a halt to output. At this point, much of the world has opened up in terms of COVID precautions. However, starting in February, the world then saw the invasion of Russia into Ukraine. This event not only wreaked havoc on the people of Ukraine and Russia, but it also added to the supply chain issues, considering both countries are they themselves big suppliers, Ukraine with agricultural products and Russia with oil. Ukraine's supply has been stifled mostly due to destruction from the fighting, and also its workers are likely joining the Ukrainian defense or fleeing the country. But Russia's export issues come mostly from Western sanctions due to the invasion. Over 1,000 companies have pulled operations from the country in protest, as well as countries limiting or banning the purchasing of their products. However, it's the oil in particular that has caused an ongoing global crisis, considering the world's reliance on it for everyday living, such as gas for our cars and heat for our homes. Fossil fuel exports are a massive moneymaker for Russia, with oil and gas alone making up 45% of their federal budget last year. So the idea with the sanctions was to cut them off from their bread and butter that's helping to fund the invasion in the first place. The problem is that this doesn't just affect Russia. It affects countries who rely on them for oil and gas, particularly European countries, as Russia is by far Europe's largest supplier. In 2020, Europe, including Turkey, imported the equivalent of about 36% of its total gas demand from Russia. Add on top of that, holdups on gas pipeline repairs, which may or may not be on purpose by Russia, and you kind of have a game of chicken. The EU and its allies want Russia to end the fighting in Ukraine, and Russia wants the West to ease up sanctions. And like I mentioned, it's definitely not just Europe that's affected, as the whole world relies on this industry. So, you add on top of that yesterday's announcement by OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. OPEC is an intergovernmental organization of 13 oil-producing countries, including Saudi Arabia, Iran, Venezuela, and more, who together account for an estimated 45% of global oil production and over 81% of the world's proven oil reserves. Essentially, this group heavily influences global oil prices by controlling production levels. And this was the announcement OPEC made yesterday. They agreed on a production cut of 2 million barrels a day, which equates to about 2% of global oil production. The idea here is to lower production so as to keep prices at a certain level. Prices actually started to dip for a while, so this move is to try to keep them up. This announcement directly affects other plans by the Biden administration and the EU to start capping the price of Russian oil. The cap was supposed to be an agreement to lower the price so as to deprive the Kremlin of tens of billions of dollars annually. The logistics of this plan was already tricky, so this OPEC announcement just adds to that. If this group of oil-producing countries agree to lower supply together, then that gives Putin more leverage against those working to get Russian prices down. The global economy overall is in a downturn, so it's still to be seen on how much consumers will cut back on demand. In theory, consumers could reduce gas and oil consumption due to high prices, but with winter approaching, this is going to be tough for regions that experience freezing climates. Also worth noting is that OPEC also agreed to extend the one-year agreement of OPEC Plus, which is a temporary alliance between OPEC and Russia and its allies. The alliance started in 2016 and was scheduled to expire in December, but it's now on through 2023. This is a political blow to the West and its support of Ukraine. Yesterday, I talked about the lack of an exit strategy for the war, and if there should be one, considering the global effects it continues to have. You have some that think compromises need to be considered, but also those who say Ukraine should fight until all its territory is reclaimed. You've just been informed, so now it's time to get on with your day. I'm Michele Carroll. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode and want to continue following a healthier alternative for staying informed, where I forgo partisan fighting and fear-driven narratives and just get to the point, then please be sure to hit that subscribe button, as of course you'll get more of this show in your feed, and also you'll be helping this new channel grow and reject sensational media. Thank you so much for your support, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode.